we are going to go look over a YouTuber who did a reaction video to Richard Cooper, Tests You Do for Women. Now, I'm not too interested in Rich's content. He does it. Go watch it on his channel. I'm not going to rehash it here. The part that I'm enjoying is this breakdown of a 40-minute critique. Now, I'm not going to do the lazy thing where I just watch the video and then stare and then make a snarky comment back. I think you guys deserve better. The key point here to take away from the video is that it's absolutely ridiculous to try and make these arguments. The first one is that men and women are exactly the same, with a huge amount of hypocrisy in there saying, well, they're the same if they're the way I am. If they're the way the other person is, well, then that's just environmental, unless it's not. But sometimes it is, but it should be. The second one is a paranoid dismissal. So anytime you have anything negative to say, concerned to say, protective to say about men and their relationship with women, it has to be because you're paranoid, and it has to be because you're trying to protect yourself. You're some kind of broken, damaged person with an overcompensating cope. Again, it's pretty standard. If you're getting younger people, like I said, a Zoomer doing this one, I think she's maybe like 23, 24. If you're 23 years old and you don't have a lot of life experience, you probably haven't had a chance to have life give you a little kick when you're down before. So it's obvious you're going to get a lot of naive optimism towards these things and just not understanding Rich being a 47-year-old man with a divorce, with an absolutely horrible relationship that pretty much everybody goes through this stuff. And then the last part, and this is the real rubbing me the wrong way part of it, it's that she suggests that this stuff is all false and the motives behind it are just to prey on predatory men. But on the video, I'll let that speak for itself. So sit back and enjoy. And if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you at the end of the video.
So far, like his examples that have revolved around the car sort of thing, that could apply to any gender. You know, if that's how this guy wants to live his life, that's totally fine. I'm not seeing anything gendered about this. Not necessarily anything gendered about that. It's also, again, there's nothing really gender specific in here. I'm still not seeing anything gendered. Laying that to a man. Do you see what I mean? There's nothing gendered, except that I feel like obviously it's unnecessarily gendered. But I agree, but again, applies to any gender. There's no need to gender that. And he could apply this kind of logic to just relationships overall, rather than gender it.
I'm surprised how pervasive this is. This applies to any gender. This applies to all the genders. This is all about the genders. Now there's two parts to this argument that I don't like. The first is mistaking the target. And the second, it's the complete removal of men. Some weird narcissistic fantasy of one's own self-image being the blank slate that every good thing in the universe applies to and every bad thing is clearly against. And say what you want, man. When a girl's telling you that everything about you that makes you that she doesn't like is toxic and everything about you that pleases her or reflects her own attitude is a good thing, all it's saying is, I would rather you be a woman. Even though she doesn't think it, but whatever. And the worst part, so I've watched one or two videos with Rollo on this, and it's that there's half-truths. And that makes it more insidious than just outright lies. Like, it's very easy if something's completely off the rails to just shrug it off and say this is complete nonsense. But everything she says in this video isn't wrong per se. There's wrong parts, but the way it's framed, but I'll get to the reasons why for that later. Now, first off is the target. From Rich's videos, the target is men. Best I can tell. Rich doesn't want to be the next female dating coach. Rich doesn't want to be the next female dating expert. Rich doesn't want to be a marriage counselor or some kind of female Anthony Robbins positive speaker. He's not the next Matt Forney. He's not the next Mark Manson. He's not the next Dr. Sepha, of which I've done a video on, by the way. And to be fair, I don't blame him. The big reason is that women have generally responded well to pandering. They don't want to fix the problem. As a general principle, I have to add that in there because, I'm sure some guy somewhere doesn't want to fix the problem either. It's that they want to feel better about it. They want to have how they feel about the situation validated. And generally speaking, they want to be told, a lot of them want to be told, it's not their fault. Now, does this sound harsh? Well, let me just put it this way. Ask any man in the comments or in your own life who's had to endure a round of marriage counseling before his wife proclaimed, "We tried everything," and moved on with her life. Ask him if that was the case. And so when you see these calls to make this kind of message more palatable to the female ear, the female sensibility, the female moral framework, when you see that need to say, okay, every time I've mentioned anything bad about a girl ever, or anything that you shouldn't be concerned about ever, that you need to be flat out honest and say that sometimes a man will do it too. The problem is the target is men. And men that watch Rich's channel don't want to sleep with other men. So it's completely useless to the thing. It's a digression. Men aren't dating men. Men don't need to know what men are doing that's bad when it comes to dating. Save that for girls who want to talk to other girls about what's wrong with ain't shit men. There's more than enough of that on the internet anyway. In fact, 95% of all of this is female-oriented stuff. The fact that we have this one small corner of man thing, and that's still too much, kind of gives you pause. And frankly, you could kind of expect it to be a little bit more on the cautionary side or the preventative side. I don't think any man on earth needs to be told how to enjoy a woman who's pleasant company, a girl who adds value to your life, a girl who generally wants to be there, or the catchphrase everybody throws out, genuine desire. If you're the kind of guy who needs somebody to tell you how to enjoy a girl who's very pleasant, then I don't know what to tell you. You shouldn't be watching this stuff on YouTube anyway. Now, the second part of this is that appeal to blank slate equalism. And I'm never quite sure if the author or the people that speak about this ever know they're doing it, but it's the way the outcome plays out. So as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter what the intentions are. Now, it's true. There's overlap in all humans, and that overlap is pretty large. If you drew a Venn diagram of men and a Venn diagram of women, the circles would overlap pretty heavily. We eat the same, we drink the same, we breathe the same, and yes, we both poop. Sorry, boys, fantasy ruined. However, with anything, it's at the margins where the magic happens. Now, if I were an incel or a MGTOW or one of those, goofy angry boys on the internet that makes these forums she frequents, because she mentions she goes to the incel wiki all the time for her research, I would bring up how women don't have the same testosterone levels as men and the resultant changes of how men and women metabolize fat. I'd bring up that the studies are out there. I'd bring up that everybody ignores it. I'd bring up that it's so easy to accept the physiological differences between men and women, so why does that have to stop at the neck up? And I hate doing that, because this conversation always goes the same way. Guys assume there's one reality, and truth is what best describes it. They assume that anything can be good, or it can be bad, depending on whose interest you're discussing. It's good for you, it's bad for me, and vice versa. And they generally think discussions are collaborative, and it doesn't matter if you're an asshole, just so long as what you're saying is closer to the truth. Now, women, girls, females, chicks, broads, tarts, birds, ladies, whatever term is less misogynistic to say, they think, in general, reality is subjective, and truth is a codified perspective. I'm sure you guys have heard the term my truth, or I don't believe that. It's kind of that thing. Now, they assume, in general, there's a single universal good and evil, no gray area, and that the purpose of these discussions are about establishing who has the authority. And whoever has that authority can dictate what is good or bad based on their codified perspective. It's literally a power play to see who gets to define truth for the group. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but I'm not going to get into it. This video would be 3 hours long, and I don't want to waste everybody's time. Just take it on a leap of faith here. So generally speaking, these conversations tend to be a waste of time. Guys will sit here arguing about trying to get to the truth, and that the person's character is off the table. And women will work to establish who is the better person, who is the moral arbitrator of truth, so that they can dictate it. And the rest of this video is basically an example of it. You hear it in a lot of the language. Well, Richard and I basically agree on the broad strokes, but completely disagree on the tone of the delivery. Now, most guys in this channel probably agree with that tone, almost as if it was designed to appeal to male sensibilities and not to female sensibilities. Like it's good for one person to hear, not so good for the other person. But again, you can't have that moral relativism when you're looking at this through a feminine framework.
Sounds very paranoid to me. Like, Dill Reed is quite paranoid to me, but it screams a little bit of somebody who is very paranoid on anyone. I think I do think there's an element of suspicion. Like, if you are feeling a certain level of vulnerability, that I think this guy definitely is.
And this is where everything takes a turn for the insidious. The paranoid dismissal. And this is where our unintentional, intentional, the Mott and Bailey come in. I'm going to quote Rollo here when it comes to her thinking that guys are always angry or paranoid. And to quote him, there is a lot of anger towards women in the manosphere. These misogynists think that all women are evil bitches out to take half their money, steal their children, and force them into indentured servitude. I pity them. I really do. Now, this wasn't a quote from Rollo. This is a quote that Rollo used to sum up generally how these conversations go. As you can notice here, it's really about establishing yourself as the moral authority above these guys in the pecking order so you can dictate truth. Like Rollo says, anger is the perfect disqualifier for the feminine. Now, this is his quote. Most of the men who've expressed a genuine anger aren't angry with women, but rather they're angry with themselves for having been blind to the game that they've been a part of for so long in their blue-pilled ignorance. They're angry that they hadn't figured it out sooner. But, again, guys have an ego, just like girls do. There's your blank slate equalism. And in the same way I described earlier, that narcissistic idea that whatever you're doing is perfect and right and everything that doesn't adhere to it is bad and wrong, well, this is the example here. There can't be anything wrong with you and as a man. So when you're angry, you have to project that onto somebody. And unfortunately, women online tend to get the brunt of it. But again, anger is a phase. It eventually goes away. And if you're going to step inside the sphere, wink, wink, you're going to have to expect you're going to be dealing with a lot of it. To sit here and be surprised that guys are angry in a place where they're supposed to be angry and they're hopefully getting out of it with good mentorship and guidance is just disingenuous. Now, here's my question. Are we angry? Are we paranoid? I mean, some are. In fact, it's kind of required. Almost an entrance exam for guys who want to figure their shit out. And I've talked about it before, but briefly, our brains are hardwired to be lazy. When we figure out a good enough solution, a good enough set of mental models to get around day to day, it sticks to it. It sticks to it because it takes way less energy than having to constantly assess and reassess everything around us all the time. Shorthand terms, this is called a mental model, a model of the world that our brain uses to save energy by just sticking with a couple general rules of thumb which have a good enough effect on allowing us to succeed in the world. It takes a real threat for a brain actually to stop doing it, to start paying attention again, and to learn from the new environment. Anger's purpose from an evolutionary perspective here, and I'm generalizing obviously, it's a way of achieving that extra neuroplasticity that tells our brain something's not working and we gotta figure it out. Again, anger is a social emotion. It comes from both a trauma and a perceived grievance. And like I said before, guys have a hard time coming to terms with that anger. It's been shamed by just about everybody around them, but especially women, that it's bad, it's wrong, it's evil. And so the only place for it to have a vent anymore is projected onto girls. Now, commenters like her can hate on Rich or Rollo or anybody else all they want. Say what you will about hanging out with people that are in an anger phase and there's a perpetual churn of new guys. It takes real patience to deal with that and help guide people to the other side on being a better man, and all while using language that resonates. Now, as for the paranoia, I don't like when people say this either, because when it's aimed at women, it's paranoid. But if it was aimed at fire safety, firearm safety, boat safety, skydiving, carpentry, cooking, jaywalking, and whatever else, it's just called safety. Put a pin in this though, because it's going to come up a bit later in the video. Now, I imagine if Rich had a video talking about testing your roofer before letting him shingle your house, nobody would have cared. But instead of shingles, make it women, and instead of your house, make it your life, and now it's paranoia.
We know that these videos really prey on vulnerable young men who have not had many experiences in dating.
So these are essentially how-to videos. Now, I'm not going to get into which parts I agree with on Rich's particular video and which I don't, because that's beside the point. Rich has always been a bit more blunt than I would be. He drives fast, he lives large. I fully expect that he has ample value to women that he can afford to be the same way with his vetting. Regardless, they're just how-to videos. If he was telling guys how to caulk a sink, no one would bat an eye. If he was telling you how to run a sawmill, he'd get 1 million views on his wood-cutting time-lapses. Informing you of all the ways you can get your hand caught in the machinery wouldn't be paranoia, it would be prudent advice. No one would think to say, well, not all sawmills have that machine. My sawmill has safety cages and would never take off your hand if you were that careless. They're just preying on young sawmill owners who are just unsure about how to run their equipment. Then again, I don't want to argue too much here. She's absolutely right in that most men are complete dumpster fires when it comes to women. An even larger percentage of men who make YouTube videos on women are even worse. Now, if you've been following me on Twitter, you can probably name about a half a dozen stalkers I have right now who are psychologically stunted and big brands talking about masculinity or some nonsense. The big reason I want to make this video, because I think she's made a mistake in lumping Rich in with the incel wiki crowd. Now, not going to make the case for her, I'm making it for you. And mostly because I need the views, so hit like and subscribe if you want to see more videos.
I find it very hard to believe, maybe this is just a personal thing, but I find it hard to believe that someone wouldn't be interested in any art galleries. Like, all galleries have such a wide range of art, and there's modern art is so different to classical art. There's just I don't think I could ever be anyone with who don't think I could be with anyone who would just veto all art. You know?
Yeah, the women in their art galleries bit, this has nothing to do with anything, by the way, except for it hit me personally. If you don't know, I have a degree in graphic design and art history, and I can't help but think Rich is poking fun at me here, which is fine. When I was still in the military, I would take the time in my city to hit up whatever art gallery they had. My 2 best friends would come with me because they wanted to stay sober until Saturday and not miss their visit with a hangover. They mocked me the entire trip. Do you like art because you like dick? Absolutely crushing. So then, I hear from the girls back home that they were telling them how they were so cultured and highbrow compared to the other sailors, checking out the museums and the art galleries and talking at length about Wassily Kandinsky. I guess you're allowed to like it privately. Like dick.
To be more ready for the zombie apocalypse than my mum, basically. Basically, I think this is very situational, sort of silly, fun question that you could maybe kind of draw some exchange of personal values out of, but you definitely shouldn't use this to test whether you should stay with your partner. A, it's a unreasonable hypothetical, and B, it's totally situational. What somebody would do in an imaginary scenario does not mean that they don't care about you in real life. We're actually talking on your answer is going to be partly driven by the fact that you know that he's got a safe full of weapons, right? So is that she loves you and wants to have your back, or is that he's got the most weapons, he'll be a good person to hide behind? Doesn't that kind of negate your test in certain ways?
To me, as I'm emptying the mouth.
Standards, I think I might be a high quality woman. I think entrepreneurs in cars might be my new best friend. And I've sort of ticked all the boxes.
The zombie apocalypse section I kind of liked, because it reminds me that game is a game. And this is probably the best point she made in the whole video. And I don't even think she realizes that she did. Rich is fun. Not like the other guys. And it's because it's a game, fellas. The reason she has a channel full of videos her laughing at MGTOWs and incel stupidity is because they are soulless, fun-sucking vampires. Rich, though, he's fun. His stories are fun. It's because game is a game. It's not if it's not fun, what's the point? And she caught on to the zombie apocalypse thing as a fun little game to learn about the inner values of the other person, but wouldn't take it seriously. Well, why not? I've done this myself, except for it wasn't zombies. It was an old thing they used to call the cube. Now, I'm not going to waste your time talking about it here. Look it up, and it's fun. Trust me. It turns a 45-minute conversation into a complete itinerary of a girl's hopes, fears, friends, work, ideal lovers, and aspirations, and it's just a fun game about horses and flowers. It's funny too, because while I did pick up way back in my early 20s to alleviate the problems with a heavy sailing schedule in the military and having zero downtime to do this the slow way, Rich had no time for it. But he still figured out the important parts on his own, and they worked just as well. Again, this is just giving guys training wheels on being efficiently normal people. And you know what? They're fun. Even with all the critique and accusations of paranoia, she's still having fun. Like, if you watch the video, teeth are smiling. She's having a great old time with this one.
I probably wouldn't talk about it like this, but 100% I do think you should absolutely keep an eye on the way the person you're dating talks to service staff. How there is a test for it, so not all women can be like that. I mean, we know they're not because just look at them. I've heard about women talking about effectively the same thing, like doing no tests. But I look to spend time with people who are enjoyable to spend time with. It's a bit much to read into a person's whole personality via this test.
So if you go...
Isn't that exactly what I said the other way around? According to Entrepreneurs in Cars, it's fine and men should test women, but he's got videos about how women testing men is bad.
Then there's the not all women are like that relationship coach section. So we have a relationship coach in the making here, boys. And even the old dismissal of generalizations. I mean, first let's get the coaching thing out of the way. Like, isn't it funny? Guys talk about all this stuff, and we're paranoid, angry men. She starts to bring up some experiences, swap some notes, and now it's perfectly fine. Welcome to what Rollo calls the feminine imperative. It's cool when I do it, it's not cool when you do it. And as much as I'd love to think it's a cabal of war room-inspired feminist Illuminati, it's not that. It's much simpler. It's not a bug, it's a feature, and more biological than that. Women are the protected gender. We have selected for that before we were Cro-Magnons because the groups that protected their women, that treated their women as better, they had a better class of cave women, they managed to have more cave babies, and they outbred the misogynist cavemen. And now we're at a point, 8 billion strong, of women good, men bad. It's pervasive, it's hardwired, and keep that stuff in mind when you hear things like this. So remember, when you hear equality, knowing that that's our ingrained hardwiring, it's never about us being the same. It's about everybody else being women. Rollo Tomassi has an article about it called Removing the Man. Kids are plastered all over the news in clickbait articles about removing toxic masculinity. It's never about girls breaking barriers by wearing pants and riding penny farthings. It's always men putting on dresses and acting like women and crying on TikTok and the most effeminate stuff you could see. Granted, that's an extreme example, but sometimes you just have to drive the point home with the 2x4 of truth, so deal. Anyways, even in this video, her problem isn't with his advice, it was with his tone. He delivered it not to her tastes, and that's objectively bad. Remember what I said before about a moral objectivity? Equal isn't equal. Equal means feminine sensibilities, full stop. And so she's referencing AWOLT and NAWOLT, which is all women are like that versus not all women are like that, a few times in the video. AWOLT, all women like that, NAWOLT, not. It's a typical understanding where an outsider takes this red pill stuff and interprets it literally, but not seriously, which is completely backwards. You're supposed to take it seriously, but not literally. Now, for example, if I tell you, as part of my firearms safety course, that you treat all guns as if they're loaded, are you going to call me paranoid? Because most people don't leave loaded guns in the house? And I would never leave a loaded gun lying around, and you're just an angry, paranoid little man who always checks the guns if they're loaded, and who shot you? Like, if I told you that, would you agree with me? Or would you look at me like I'm a walking accident waiting to happen? No, you assume all guns are loaded. Not because all guns are like that, but because if you do that, you're never accidentally going to suck-start a shotgun. And that's the point. Instead of taking it literally, but not seriously, you're taking it seriously, but not literally. Now, sometimes the stuff we talk about is literal, sometimes it's not. And how are you supposed to tell the difference? Well, You're supposed to use your damned head and have some experience in the world. If you're stupid enough to listen to one YouTube video and then nuke your life, you were gonna screw it up anyways, so don't blame anybody. And if you're getting all your ideas about what men and women are like from an incel wiki, people that are self-avowed, completely ignorant to the plight of women, then yeah, you get what you deserve. And the part that bothers me about it, it's an appeal to the lowest common denominator.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Oh, think of the children. Oh, don't eat paint. I can't stand this stuff. If video games don't cause school shootings, then Rich Cooper running his mouth in his car is not going to turn the guy into a raging misogynist because he rambles on about a few goofy games to see if a woman is a total bitch or not.
It's my favourite word. For those of you who are new to the manosphere, I will fetch a definition of hypergamy for you. The action of marrying or forming a sexual relationship with a person of a superior sociological or educational background, or financial, a lot of people argue. Certainly the incel forums believe that all women are hypergamous.
And then hypergamy. Like, I really wish he wasn't reading the fucking incel wiki. Like, those bozos, not only are they celibate, but they're illiterate too. If you talk about like alpha males, in the same way that alpha can describe a particle, a dominant pack leader, and our definition of attractive qualities and traits, hypergamy can be used in both the social sciences and within the red pill. Girls hook up, and up is reductive, and it's about as useful to us as phrenology. It would be a video to discuss in and of itself, but I'm not going to waste your time here. Simply put, hypergamy is the idea that women can be fiercely loyal to one man at a time. Her best option. Her hypergamous best option. In fact, lab coat jockeys have put girls madly in love into experiments where they had to rate pictures of men based on their attractiveness. And every single one of them rated the men significantly lower than their single and miserable cohorts. And that's hypergamy. If it wasn't for hypergamy, there'd be no monogamy. They would just have open, free love. They'd jump on the first chance for a new dick if they didn't have one already. And if they did, they'd move on quickly. But they don't do that. Again, the best option, she actively bonds to that guy to the point that she sees everybody else as a worse option. Now, does that sound bad to you? Well, if you're not the option, probably. So is it any wonder the incels get it so stupidly wrong? They're doing the same blank slate equalism that she's doing. Well, look, I hate to tell you this. Men cast their net wide. Women like to snipe. We're not the same, and that's okay. Like, I can't even get irritated at stuff like this. What conclusion is she exactly supposed to draw by reading the ramblings of a sexless chump who read half a Rational Male article and then created a fucking hypergamy manifesto?
Well, I said earlier, I wonder if it's, oh, women are always doing this, so we have to do it back to them, which like creates this vicious circle of, you know, because if he was wrong, but then there's women out there that think like he does, and so they're like, well, men keep shit testing me, so we better shit test men. Then you're perpetuating this cycle. There's no element of like, be the better person here.
And then I'm going to end on her be the better person part of it. You know, the onus is always on us to be the better person, which it's a weird way to frame it, but whatever. She ends it on essentially, well, if women are bad like this, and men are bad like this, then everyone's just bad to each other and everybody's unhappy. Somebody has to break the peace. To which she's not wrong, but that only seems to play out one of two ways. Hot girls either have to stop acting thoughty and be more discerning, you know, never mind that they have to ignore their own instincts, to whatever degree they have them. Every incentive to be thoughty, every incentive to collect men like Pokemon, and likely the guarantee that when they're done, there's still going to be a thirsty father in waiting for her in her 30s to help pick up the pieces. You know, the better man. Or guys are going to stop treating all guns as if they're loaded. Women won't change their behavior. And the guys who pick girls will increasingly be caught in the meat grinder. Yeah, not all of them, but more than there are now. So yeah, I'm going to steal a quote here from Dr. David Buss and his wonderful book, Why Women Have Sex, when he describes sexual dynamics between men and women writ large as adversarial, not collaborative. Individually, men and women have a polarity. They can add value to each other, they can thrive, they can be great. But as a collective, we lie, we cheat, we fake our value, and we generally act pretty shitty. Guys lie about their job, women put on makeup. Guys put lifts in their shoes. Girls swear you're the father. You get the point. Now, not everybody is equally shitty, and not everybody will be shitty all of the time, and not to the same degree, but to some extent, we all do it. So yeah, until you can walk into the dating pool, carefree as a kiwi bird, and come out unscathed, treat all guns as if they're loaded. Now, you're going to be called paranoid, you're going to be called angry, but they won't call you that poor bastard who got run through the meat grinder. And you know what? For me, that's good enough.
Some of my favorite things about women are how supportive they are, by and large, of men. Having this ambition, trying to go out and accomplish things in life, and to have the girls in your life admire that about you, supportive. It means so much to a guy to have a girl be supportive like that. I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower.
I don't expect that much.